Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us for the talk today. I'm going to turn it over to Nagazi to introduce our wonderful speaker.
Hello, everyone. This is Nagazi. I'm here. Let me introduce to you Muazma Zahid. She is a principal PM manager at Microsoft. She has been a data engineer and tech speaker working on several big data, cloud computing, and AI technology. She is a LinkedIn learning instructor and has a course called Breaking Biases in Tech. She is also a Seattle chapter leader for AnitaB.org and a co-chapter of women at Microsoft. And now I'm going to pass it on to her to go into her presentation from student to professional.
Thank you, Nagazi. Thank you, Jenna. Thanks, everyone, for joining. As I was introduced, my name is Muazma Zahid. I am really excited to talk to you about this topic that is from student to professional, as you will be, or you might have already been in your past experience as part of a professional career. So we'll be sharing some tips and tricks. How do you stand out, especially in current times when there are lots of things that are uncertain? I will talk a lot about LinkedIn, how to use LinkedIn efficiently, and then I'll be sharing my journey and some tips and tricks around what does a career in data looks like, and share across as well. Throughout this session, I want it to be interactive, so whatever you will have top of your mind, anything that's not clear that I'm saying, please feel free to ask those questions either in chat or come off mute. I would be happy to take those questions. So I was introduced, the one picture on the very right top is the very first time when I did a presentation. So it was done, the picture is taken from a camera back in the days where there was a date in that, and it's 2000, it's small, you can't see it. This was in front of 300 plus doctors and folks that I was talking to, and my legs were shaking. I still remember that day because this was the first time I was presenting my research work, which was to detect heart attacks and using algorithms. Back in the day, it was not called data science. It was not as fancy or buzzword. So that research eventually ended up being part of EKG machines all around the world. So that's one work I'm really proud of. God forbid if you ever end up in a emergency room, they have these machines where they do EKG on you. There's a small pop-up that shows if you have a tendency to get a heart attack in the next few days to few hours. And that algorithm was built by me when I was in college. So really excited to share that. But all in all, I'm part of a community, several communities that try to do a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion work, and really try to give back my time to communities, people who are looking for mentorship, coaching, things like that. I don't have all the answers, but I try to be a resource for folks. So please reach out if you have any questions. There's a link on the top. If I'm not able to get to any questions, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or other channels. I would be happy to take those questions. I had prepared a bunch of content, so I'll try to go through it as much as possible. And afterwards, I'll be sharing the slides also with Nagazi to share with all of you. So you don't need to worry about, let's say, just going through everything that I'm going to share. You will have the content available to you afterwards as well. So with that, this is the agenda that I thought would be useful for this 1 hour. I will be talking about what is a professional brand, how do you define your professional brand, and why it's important. I will talk about job search, we'll talk about some of the tips and tricks in that area, especially in the data field, and how do you put your best foot forward. Networking is very, very important, so I'll share some tips and tricks there. I'll talk about data roles, skills that are currently in demand in the market. So again, sharing those from my experience, and there would be some extra credits and things that you can look at to really stand out in the current market and for your future as well. So I will start with this. This is something really resonated with me, and this is an artist or a person who creates these called as Foslin. If you don't know her, definitely follow her on LinkedIn. She posts different images, but this really resonated with me. Usually what you think of is a big change or a big plan, but it's really those small steps. every day working towards that goal is something, and consistent in those goals is the thing that will land you eventually to that. Now I have some more things that I will share later. The other thing on the right here is what you think you need to get started. So for example, if you had a goal to become a data scientist and you want to learn Python to do that, you might think that you already know it, or you might think that you need to know everything to get started. But reality is it's not. It's those breaking that big task into smaller things makes your way towards that goal much easier. So if you don't remember anything in the next 1 hour, I would want you to take away this image with you to think about those steps towards your goal, whatever that goal is, and try to do that every single day. Set aside 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever that is for you, for that goal that you have. And hopefully with consistency, you will get there. And I'm sharing that with my experience because throughout my career of 15 plus years in tech, I've had several goals, I have several different aspirations. The ones that I was most consistent with were the ones where I was able to deliver, I was able to do the things that I wanted to do. So that's one message I wanted to start all with. And as it says, it's a journey. It's not a single step, it's a journey, and enjoy the journey rather than just being at the target. Because when you are at the target, you're always going after something else. So it's about that path. So starting off with a professional brand, and what is a professional brand, right? So thinking about why it's important, first of all. So today, if I go on Google or Bing and try to search on any one of you or myself, you'll find some information about me. If you have heard me talk in previous sessions, or you've known me, or through some other link, you would have some impression of me. But the people who I work with, or the colleagues or folks that I've done research with, are the folks who have a particular brand in their mind about me, which is my professional brand. Now, why it is important, why I'm talking to you about that, because all of you eventually would have that professional brand, and that's important for you over your years of experience to keep building upon it and be on the driving seat for that brand rather than somebody else coming in and defining that for you. So I would like us to do a small exercise here. So first of all, what makes a good brand? Think about one of your most favorite brand, whatever that is. It could be a t-shirt or a shoes or phone or whatever that is. What do you think that makes a good brand? From my perspective, it's the promise of that brand to you, how it is unique to you and how it solves a problem for you. Anyone in the room who would like to share, please go ahead and do so.
I think it's providing a value to the consumer.
I don't think I can hear you, Jenna.
I was saying providing value to the consumer. Like there's somebody who would be interacting with you. And
yeah, I'm not able to hear. I don't know if Nagozi, you can hear what Jenna is saying.
I'm able to hear her.
Okay. Something is wrong on my side then.
Nagazi, could you repeat my question? Or
yeah, I could hear you now. I could hear you now. Could you say that?
What I was saying is that one of the things that makes up a good brand is looking at it from the side of the person consuming that brand. What value are they getting from that interaction?
Yeah, 100%. So it's how that is basically unique to you, and what value do you bring to the table. So really well said there, Jenna. In terms of this is when I talk about professional brand, a lot of people are like, oh wait, I have my own brand. Yes, you all have your own brand. You all have, even if when you're a student, when you interact with other people, or you're working on different projects, you have your unique perspective. And that's exactly what's in this slide, what Jenna just said, is your brand is your promise to those around you. What do you bring to the table? How are you unique? It tells people that what they can expect when working with you or around you. So this is really important for you to drive that, and you to be at the front seat of it. And it also shows in some ways how unique you are, because all of us have certain unique capabilities, some superstars, some capabilities that we are superstars of, and that's something that we should be sharing more often. More folks around us, the more folks know around us, the more that becomes part of your brand. And it can really shape how people perceive you, how people assign you projects, how do you actually show up in resumes, LinkedIn, and other things as well. So this is a small activity. Again, you don't have to do that right now, but this is what, as part of the LinkedIn workshop and a few other places that we have done, where ask three of your, basically ask your friends to write down or tell you 3 words that describe you. Do the same thing with colleagues or some people that you work in professional environment, and see across those things if there are certain themes that are arising. And you'll see very soon that you will start seeing some words coming up. You can take a paper and pen right now also if you want to write it down. Why these things are important is something, one, you will know what are the things that are unique about you. And you'll see if you ask the same question even to 2 friends about 2 people, the answers won't be the same, because there's something unique about you. It's not in the case for others. Knowing that and having that self-awareness is also very important to know how people perceive you today. And then once you know it, you can change that perspective if you want to change, if you're not aligned with that, or you want certain other things to be in those 3 words or those sentences, is something you can do. So this is a small activity that I've done over the years with my friends and colleagues, and you'll see also over the years it can change. It does not have to be the same. There are certain things you would be known for, or the certain things that you have in your professional brand today might not be true in few years. When I was individual contributor versus now as a manager, as a leader, the capabilities and activities and the way how folks perceive me or my professional brand has changed over the years as well. And that's part of the journey. So this is a small activity. You can keep doing it. I try to keep a tab of it over the years. And how you can use this is, for example, if you go on LinkedIn and you look at the headline, you can actually use some of those words in your mission statement in your work. And I'll share one example with you of what that looks like in terms of a real experience. So whenever you go into any interview, the first question somebody asks you is, please introduce yourself. Tell me about yourself. Or if you're in a networking environment or in a conference or an event, folks will ask you. So this is kind of 2 formats in which I've seen it the most effective. How do you actually do this elevator pitch in less than 60 seconds? One of the format is, I do XYZ to achieve, help, provide XYZ format. That's one format that lands really well. And I have an example from somebody who's really sharing what that means from that person's professional brand. There's another format which is, I help, starts with what you do as an action first, to do what. And that's another way to actually land the same message. Bonus thing is, in that 50, 60 seconds that you have in the intro, or maybe more, a couple of minutes, if you add a fun fact or a stat, a data point that makes you unique, something that is very, very effective that you've done in the past, or a project that you're really proud of, or the work that you have done that lands really well with the other person. There are a lot of research shows that most of the interviewers or most of folks who are listening to you are more intrigued by that, and then they would perceive everything after that very positively. And this is just more about the psychology of things. And I've done some research in bias and few things like that. So very familiar with how your introduction in the first 5 to 6 minutes of how you interact in any interview or interact in any kind of networking situation as well can impact the rest of the interactions of how that will go. And why I'm again talking about all of these things is something, when I was starting my career, I did not even know that there's a thing called elevator pitch. So whoever would ask me, I would go and maybe talk about 5 minutes, 3 minutes about all the projects, all the things that I've done. And they were like, okay, I don't know what you're saying. Or they would have this face where they're a little bit confused why I'm talking about so many things. So having that clarity of thought and having this mission kind of brand statement top of your mind is really, really something that I have learned over the years and just wanted to share as with all of you. So in the room, or just from folks who are listening here, does it resonate with you? Do you already have a brand statement? Maybe raise your hands or somehow just if you can share. Okay, awesome. So if you already have, then that's really amazing. If not, just take a paper and pen, write it down, and maybe do a few iterations of it today and practice it with your friends or some colleagues or somebody that you work very closely with and see how they perceive it. So that's important in terms of how your initial interactions are, right? So brand is really, really important. There's a lot in this topic. There are a lot of great talks, and I have some resources at the end that you can learn how to actually build brand over the years and what is that you want to be there. Now, I'm switching gears in terms of job search. So this is an area where currently, and it's been in the market, a few waves have come and go, came and gone. In the case where the job search is itself, I would say, an art, right? You need to know the process. You need to understand what the interview process is, and you need to really find the right fit for you from that perspective. So I'll share a lot of tips here, again, very, very small nuggets here for you to take away. And especially from a LinkedIn perspective, LinkedIn is kind of the platform where a lot of employers go to, and a lot of folks build their brand or professional brand on LinkedIn as well. So the first and foremost, I think a lot of you already know the search capability there, but again, regardless of LinkedIn, whatever platform you go to, which is for jobs, there are certain things that you should be looking at. Have an action plan for yourself. What does it mean? Like what types of companies you want to work with, or what type of roles you're looking for. In terms of job titles, certain keywords, if your location is important, if that's something you can add, experience level, and when the actual job was posted. Now, once you know what really you're looking for, and you found a set of results that really match to what jobs you're looking for, set up these search alerts. So as soon as there is a job which actually qualifies for those searches that you have done, you will get notified the moment it's posted, and you might be the first few folks who actually get up to apply to that role. Now, go beyond that, just from a search alert perspective, but also think about what are the jobs that are most relevant to you. So one way in LinkedIn is actually, and this is again, how do you make your LinkedIn profile really stand out and align with your career goals, is if you go today in LinkedIn, and if you all have LinkedIn accounts, if you go LinkedIn and go to the section jobs you may be interested in. And in this section, if none of the jobs actually align to the roles that you're looking for, then your LinkedIn profile is not tailored. That means you need to actually go in and update your LinkedIn profile with the right keywords. And this is a good test today that you can do. Go to this section. This is based on, again, machine learning algorithms that takes words from your profile and shows you most relevant jobs that have those keywords. And there's some more complexity onto it as well. But that's one way of knowing today if you are actually setting up your LinkedIn profile in the right way, that the employers can find you easily or not. So this is something I would really recommend all of you to go try out today. Now, we talked briefly about professional brand. We talked about job search, and then some tips and tricks around that. There is this terminology or quote that network is your net worth. And this is something I will share from my experience as a first-generation immigrant to the US myself. I did not know this was an important thing. I see a hand up, so please go ahead and ask the question then.
Hello. This is regarding the previous slide. Can you see? Yeah. So this is the previous slide where you showed how to set up a job alert and everything. Like the job alert, and when you reach to that role, there are already 200 applications. People might have already applied to that specific role. So my question was how do you stand out when there's always a rush?
Yep, good question. So most of this session is sharing those tips and tricks with you, how you can stand up. So of course, starting with a very tailored LinkedIn profile is one way that's really, really looking for the job that you're looking for. The next few sections that I'm going to talk about is networking, and how do you ask for informational interviews, how do you actually build that network, that when the jobs arise, the folks are thinking about you as well. That's another area where I see myself actually did not know, not knowing it earlier in my career. So that's another set of tips that I would like to share. Then in the extra credit section, so towards the very end of it, I will share a lot of different other opportunities, how you can stand out. And I'll share examples of how on an engineering manager side or as a manager perspective, when I'm receiving resumes, what am I looking for example? So how do I see when I see 50 resumes, what are the resumes that really stand out to me? So hopefully towards the end of this hour, you would have some insights into it. And my goal here is to share as much as possible for you to learn of the process. And as I said, this job search and job interviewing, it's almost an art these days, because a lot of people have different processes. It has gone way more complex than when it was, let's say, when I was starting my career. And happy to share more as we go through this session. So thanks for that question.
Thank you so much.
So so I'll go into the networking part of it. So as I said, like, so one area is like you making sure that you have a professional brand, you stand out, you have a good resume, a LinkedIn profile which is tailored. But then data shows that lots of jobs are still landed because of the networking aspects of things. Folks who have referrals, folks who have those folks who can tell you what the typical role looks like in a particular company, can be that referral for you, has a higher impact, has a higher long way to go. So one tip over there is to expand your network strategically. And what do I mean by that is the types of jobs, the types of companies that you want to end up with, think about that right now while you're a student. Think about that at different parts of your career, especially when you're transitioning it from one career to another career or different types of roles. Because today, if let's say somebody sends me a message on LinkedIn that they want me to refer them to a particular company or a role, if I don't know anything about them, there's highly unlikely that I will do that. But if I've seen some work from them in the past, or they have interacted with me in the past, or I've seen some volunteer work from them, there's a higher chance that I would do it. So the reason to do that is to actually eventually build that network and keep the network warm. And what do I mean by keeping the network warm is to make sure that you have regular syncs with those folks as the time goes by. Times go by. For example, setting up a coffee chat with them, just making sure you keep them up to date what you are up to, and vice versa. Again, time is limited for everyone. So making sure you have the right mentors over the years also helps and takes you a long way. And this is something I cannot emphasize enough. As you grow senior in your career, you'll find the more mentors, allies, and sponsors you have, the higher chance you have in any type of career to either enter that career or succeed in that career, because you need all of these different folks to be there for you, to support you and uplift you. Now, in terms of LinkedIn, again, I'll share this example. You can use it in plain email, any way that you want to. From a LinkedIn perspective, these are all the different ways that you can build the network. Again, it will not happen overnight. You have to work on it, set aside 10 minutes, 15 minutes every day to think about the thought leaders of folks who you really get inspired by, or you really want to connect to, or you want them to be your mentor or sponsor over the years, or whatever that is, that network that you want to build. Be very strategic about it. I call them myself as my board of directors. And what do I mean by board of directors is, let's say if my career was my startup, then who are my board of directors? Who are the folks that I reach out to when I need, let's say, moral support, technical support, leadership support, any type of things that I need. And over the years, if I ask you, who are your board of directors? If I ask you today, could you name 2 or 3 people? That's the goal that you should have. So in terms of what is your network, how do you strategically build it, and how do you make sure that who are those folks that you can rely on when you really need either some mentorship, coaching, or just looking for a job in a particular area. I'll share some examples here, how you can do that over LinkedIn. This is a template that you can use today. You can ask anyone for an informational interview. If you don't know what an informational interview is, I can spend 1 minute on it. You can set up time with somebody to talk to them about what does a typical role in that team looks like, what are their key deliverables, how does impact looks like. These are all the things you can ask, and that can help you get prepared better for that actual interview in that team if you land that. So again, knowing those folks and knowing the teams in which they are and what they do help aligns you from your today to your tomorrow from a job perspective as well. So this is one example that you can do. The other things you can do is, if you know somebody and if you work with them or have some kind of network with them through a common connection, you can ask for a referral also. And I have provided several referrals over the years, and I continue to do that because that is a great way as an employee to bring new people in the team. And also for those folks who are looking for referrals, there's, as I said, there's a higher chance for you to go into and stand out, because as a hiring manager, the folks who have referrals show up higher as compared to the list of everyone when I'm looking at a particular role. So this is again a great tool for all of you. If you have not used it, if you're not relying on it, I would really recommend to think about referrals as you apply for different roles as well. So these are some ways, again, going back to the question, how do I stand out? Because again, if I have 50 resumes for the same role, the ones who have referrals would be the ones that would have my first attention as compared to the others, because they come in from somebody who's saying, yeah, I know this person, or I've worked with them in the past, or they could be the right fit for the team. Now, the next set of things that are important, there are many things you can do from, again, LinkedIn perspective. You can invest time. LinkedIn is now way more than just for jobs. People build their whole professional brand and also have a lot of other things there. Again, just taking LinkedIn as an example, that many other social media platforms where people are doing that. But making sure that you know what is professional side of things versus your personal brand, and then having that boundary is something that I've seen that I've worked for many folks in the career as well. You can always interact. You don't need to be in their connections. You can interact with folks, and over the years, again, the folks who interact with different folks, if their name pops up for a referral or something like that, there's high chance for that person to actually show an interest and actually connect with those folks. Same in, like, for example, giving a shout out here to Ngozi. She has been she reached out to me for this particular session over LinkedIn, right? So I had not known about that. So in a way, in future, I have a connection. So if something comes up that is a great fit for Ngozi, I would know that name and I would say, oh yeah, Ngozi, this is a good opportunity for you. And I've seen firsthand that you've been volunteering in XYZ or something like that. So these are small things, but that can take you a long way in terms of standing out as well. There are groups that you can join. There are many kind of peer programming facilities. People have WhatsApp groups, whatnot. There are many communities like this one that you're part of. Stay connected and making sure that you have the right folks, because over the years you will realize in career different folks end up in different ways. And there were 3 times in my career where I ended up working with the same people through different channels and then different parts in my career as well. So you never know who you work with today and where they will end up and how they could be the future hiring manager for you or future referral for you or not, right? So all of these things are, again, part of this big puzzle that is our career. It's not always on the receiving end. So the way I look at my network and the way I look at is what I'm giving. So the more I have given to the community, the more I've received from that side. Most of my career switches have been through somebody who has seen me do something at some stage, and they reached out for a particular role that they thought was the right fit for me. And eventually that ended up to be like that. So from my perspective, I look at, like, what can I give? How can I mentor? How can I coach? Where I can be a part of that particular thing. And that has something, writing recommendations, giving testimonials, things like that have taken, is really a different way of looking at this, as compared to something that I see where folks reach out only when they need to actually, let's say, apply for a role, right? So just re-emphasizing on the fact and making sure that you build that network strategically, at the same time, focus on the giving aspect. The take automatically comes over the years, and then it's something that you can see that you will actually see in your career as you grow, as you move into a particular career or particular discipline as well. So I'll take a pause here. Any questions so far before I go into the next section, which is data carriers?
Any questions? I think we're good.
Cool. So in terms of data, right? So data is an area where a lot has changed in the last few years. And right now, this year, we actually are at a major, I would say, disruption in the field of data as well. So when I was starting my career, just sharing that, and as I shared in my intro slide, there was machine learning and data science happening, but it was not the buzz. It was not the mainstream news or anything like that. Few years into it, there was this big hype around big data. Everybody started to learn Hadoop and things like that. So thinking from traditional databases, things like that, then there was this hype in 2 to 3 years about big data. Then 2 to 3 years into that, I saw another big hype, which is cloud computing. And it's still going on. And I'm part of Microsoft Azure, which is our cloud provider, and I work in a databases team. So it's kind of my current role where I am. Same has happened in the AI space as well. So thinking about these different roles and how they have evolved, the one tip, the Uber tip I would share here is don't get attached to the tools and processes that you're currently used to. Because over the years, you will see many tools will come and go, many languages, frameworks will come and go. If you're good with the concepts and you're good to understand what is that job really means and what are the deliverables and what you're trying to solve, the why part of the problem as a data person in any org, you will be way more successful than your peers or anybody else who's doing the same job. Now I'll share some numbers most of you must have seen. The reason why I got involved in data was my research was to predict heart attacks, and it was something, a real problem, and I saw the data can solve that. I saw patterns in data, I saw patterns in EKG, and I actually solved that. And that was my introduction to what data can be in the future. And that is still true 15, 16 years into my career, where data is still at the center of any organization that you go to. There's some quotes here: data is the new oil, AI is the new electricity, and all of that. While I'm here today, we are generating data. This Zoom call is being recorded. So all of this data is already out there. Every organization out there has certain data that they want folks like yourself and others who can come and make sense of it. And now with the disruption of AI, I won't spend a lot of time. ChatGPT and whatnot is everywhere. I'm in Microsoft, so we are in the center of it, and we are building applications and a lot of technology that is going to be dependent on these large-scale models. We have one of the largest supercomputers in the world as well, and we're doing a lot of work in this space. And this is really a disruption, what it was when the first time PCs came out. And we'll see the impact and all of that in the coming few years of all of it, but it's really going to be these zettabytes of data that we're all generating today. And then we need more professionals to understand it, to be on the part of building these applications, to be the machine learning scientist, to be the data scientist, to be on the ethics side of things, to do more research in transparency, accountability of these models, and all of the above. So if not anything, the purpose of this slide is to tell you that the career in data is very, very promising, and you can start with almost anything that you are interested in and can see that career to be very fulfilling. And just sharing my example, as I said, my first job out of college was in data. I'm still in data. I've never moved differently. I've been in the same field for the past 16 years, and I don't think that is ever going to change for me as well, because this is something really excites me every single day. In terms of the roles, this is one picture, and I have the link that I saw on LinkedIn that somebody posted. It really resonated with me. A lot of people come in when I talk to them as a mentor or in different forums. They ask me, okay, what should I learn today to be, let's say, a data scientist? What are the tools and skills that I need? This gives a decent picture of what this landscape looks like, but there's way more. For example, the business analyst roles. There are other roles like ML ops and many others that are not mentioned on this slide. As I said, depending on what you're looking for, what really excites you, there is a place for you in this data world. A good way to look at that is, like, for example, if you're really good with stats and you're really good with experimentation or inference, then being a data scientist is the right role for you, is to think about what is a successful data scientist. You can start networking, you can follow certain thought leaders, you can read articles, you can build projects in that space and really stand out in that space with your particular profile. Let's say distributed computing is your thing, and you really understand how to solve these pipeline issues and solve this data distribution issues. You could be a great data engineer. And that is what I spent most of my career in as a data engineer and data architect. And right now I'm in databases team. So that's an area that I really did well in my career, for example, from my perspective, because this is something that really resonated with me, and I could really solve these problems using data and my problem solving skills. There is a lot on the storytelling and data visualization side of things. Let's say Power BI and Tableau is your thing, where you really want to see and solve these problems that businesses have. Let's say you work in Uber Eats department, and they want to know that you want to add a new category such as Korean food in Uber Eats, and they want to see if that will move a needle for the business. That's a business problem that you're trying to solve. As a great analyst or data analyst or business analyst in that team, you can actually look at the existing data. You can use an existing model built by somebody else in a data scientist team to do the prediction or classification, and then show them in some kind of visualization what the impact would be. And once you launch the product, you can again do some A/B testing and do that. I'm just oversimplifying this life cycle of work the data analysts do, but that's just giving you some preview of what that looks like in the real world. I would also mention that don't go with the titles. The data field is very, very hyper, I would say buzzed, and titles are overhyped as well. A lot of time these startups have titles as data scientists, but when you really look into that team or ask somebody who's really their folks what they're doing, they might be applied data scientists, they might be a data analyst who's been called as data scientist, or they might be all of the above. In startups, usually you're wearing multiple hats. So my another tip here would be to really go beyond the title, really look at the job description, talk to the folks who are really doing that work in that team or that manager, and understand what does that day-to-day look like in that role, what are the deliverables, what does impact looks like, and also ask those and the opposite questions. What would make this person really fail at their job? So those type of questions also help you really understand what is expected from that role. If you have to bet on one programming language, again, from my experience, I would go with Python. Python and R are significantly used. Recently in data engineering, Scala has been used a lot, but I would go with Python as something that has existed and has actually been there for a long time. And I don't think in the next few years it's going to go away or anything like that. The rest of the tooling, how you deploy, all the frameworks that are available, what cloud platform you want to go with, all of that, they're all things that you can learn over time. You can take courses on that. You can build a plan for you to actually learn those things. So that is how I perceive the current data roles, how they're going, different skills that are there. Again, take a pause here. Any questions? If you are looking at data roles, what excites you, what makes you afraid, please feel free to ask those.
Hey, hi. Thanks for the session. I have a few questions.
Sure.
My name is Mahesh. I'm planning for data scientists and machine learning engineering roles, but I'm not sure on what to, as you said, like it totally depends upon the work you do, and it's not just a role tag. I don't know what to do. Like I have this summer. I want to do some projects, but I don't know what to do. I just want to know your perspective on what to do on for these those who want to go for these roles.
Yeah, very good question. And this is not the first time I've heard this question, so thanks for asking that out loud. And that really, a lot of folks that I know are in very similar shoes. So if I were in your shoes, I would ask myself what really excites me. For example, I'll take an example. Let's say sports is something that really excites you and you really like football. I'm not talking about American football. I'm talking about the real football. So let's say that that's something that really excites you, right? I'm just taking that as an example. Okay, if you have enough subject matter expertise in football, you know different leagues and you know different data points around that, you can start looking at what is available in the in this over the internet about the data points, certain APIs or data sets that are available in that. Can you take that data and build a model to predict one of the upcoming games that are coming in? That would be one project that would excite me if I'm really into football and really want to do machine learning. Now, if I have to build that model or take some existing model, I need to learn the right skills. So there's plenty of courses, and I might have some in the end that you can take. How do you build those machine learning models? How do you build different types of models, classification, or one of the more complex ones such as CNNs and neural networks or things like that, right? But most of the time, starting with some basic algorithms, machine learning algorithms, starting with a basic data set that excites you is a good way to start. I'll tell you my example. A few years back, when Game of Thrones was out there, a drama series. I don't know how many of you have heard that or seen that. I was one evening just wondering, okay, is the number of deaths has some correlation with how famous or how popular a particular episode is? And this is just an idea. So I actually went in and took all the data of Game of Thrones viewership and ratings and all of that, and try to answer that question with data. And actually have a blog on my Medium of what I found. I also had, once I started on that journey, again, it started as a fun project on side project. I added more things. Does the director and producer have something to do with some of the really good episodes and really bad episodes? And I actually found that there was a correlation. And there were some other things like that, and that's on my Medium. I think in my first link that I shared, you can find out. But that's I'm just giving you different ideas. And I'll tell you one thing. 2 years after that blog was out, again, it was very basic using Python notebook. I did that analysis, and it was a side project, maybe a few hours. I spent on a weekend on that. And 2 years later, one of the CEO of a startup actually saw that. Because they were trying to do some correlation of something very similar. And that person actually sent me a message on LinkedIn that they want to talk to me as a chief data officer role for that startup. So again, just sharing my personal journey there with you, that you don't know how one of these side projects can become something in your future career or not. Once you build that project, put that on your GitHub, put that on your resume and things like that. So hope this answers you, gives you some inspiration of the things that you can do. After this, when I send these links out, I will add a link to this Google page where you can find lots of open data sets for almost anything. There are a few links like that where you can find almost any open APIs that you can do that you can build a project for. I'll give you one idea that I am trying to work on one of the weekends coming up, where before COVID and after COVID, I wanted to see how travel has been affected and how and which regions travel was affected. I know some folks have already done something, but I really wanted to build a world map and really a visualization that can tell that story. And this is a project that I will be doing that I've started a few weekends ago, but it's something I'm going to build in the next few weeks as well. So hope it answers some part of your question, gives you some inspiration of how you can start today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I got an overview of the things. Thank you so much.
No worries.
We have a couple other questions.
Now,
Do you
yeah,
want?
please go ahead. Go ahead, please go ahead.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I have a question. So I'm studying computer science masters here at BU. So from the chart that you were showing earlier on the previous slide, yeah, so we probably qualify for more than one positions here. Being like, so I have studied like data analysis and taken class in Questroom, which is like more catering towards business side as well. So being qualified for multiple roles, how do you represent yourself and represent yourself on resume and on LinkedIn profile when you're aiming for these roles?
Yeah, very good question. So there have been many so many resumes that I look at from a hiring manager perspective, they do reflect multiple roles that that person could be the right fit for. So don't always think that you need to be just fitting for one job, especially when you're earlier in your career. If this was the case 5 to 7 or 8 years into the career, then something is not working. That means you really need to transition to one or the other. And that's okay. I've done some transitions in my career as well. So it's not the end of the world. But when you're starting off, it's very natural to have tendency or the skills to go into multiple roles. And over the years also, you would have that. Sometimes you are, let's say, a great machine learning scientist, but DevOps really excites you and you have some skills in DevOps, you can become an MLOps because you already know how machine learning works. You can take those machine learning models and really go into DevOps sites and become MLOps or MLOps engineer or something like that, right? So your question was actually two parts. So one, I would start by saying that don't be afraid to try out a few things. And when you're applying for roles, so how I solve this, I have solved this is I have a generic resume and I have a resume which is mostly the same, but very tailored to the role that I'm applying to. So when I'm applying to ML scientist role, I would just use the same generic one, but make my projects and everything in that resume would be very much specific to the role that I'm applying to. But my generic resume format and all of that usually stays the same. So I have two versions for that. And that particular role resume can change. It could be ML scientist, it could be data scientist, it could be applied data scientist, depending on what you think are the areas where you see the right fit for you. So that's one part of how you can do that. Now, the second part is how you know that you are the right fit or you basically can really succeed in that. That is where networking and really understanding what that role really means day to day, because as I said, you might think today from your college education that this particular tool is really exciting, but really using that tool daily on solving a business problem, is this something really excites you and continues to excite you every day, is the real question, right? So my goal would be to see multiple areas, interview, try out a few things in the start of my career, apply at multiple roles and be very focused on when you're applying at that role itself, and then kind of contrast and compare to see if that is the right path you want to go. And also check, I can very assuredly say to you, all of these roles that are on the screen and business analyst role have a future and not going away in the next few years, right? So regardless of which one you go with, if you have the right passion to be really successful and that you have the right growth mindset, you can really be successful. But you might have to be very tactical to see if this is the right fit for you today and the next few years or not. And keep learning, because today, if you start with XYZ tools, tomorrow, those tools can change. But do you really feel like that you can still solve the same problems using, let's say, another set of tools in the future or not? Those are the questions you need to answer to see if which one really speaks with you the most.
I hear you. Go ahead.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. One thing I would mention is to have mentors in the space. If you're confused between multiple, or let's say you don't know one or the other, try to find a mentor who's a data engineer, or try to find one mentor who is a data analyst and talk to them a few times and ask the same questions to them. And then take those notes back to really decide for yourself. That's another way to do this.
Yeah, makes sense.
Other questions?
Yeah, I also want to add to that, the roles, like all the data roles that you have given in the slide, they all just have the names different, right? But most of the qualification that will be given in the job, they almost all of them are same, like mostly they require Python, SQL, visualization, like everything. I mean, everything they say is preferred. So what do you suggest? Like, should when you apply to a particular role, should I be much more like, should I have my projects tailored according to that, so that I'm a better fit for that role itself? Like, what do you suggest? Because also, like, when I talk about projects, like we could have multiple projects, right? But like, what does the actually hiring manager look at when they hire for instance, like in their team, like a data scientist or data analyst? Like, how do you parse a particular project and you see that, okay, so this will give value to my team, so I should hire this guy? So
yeah, very good. Yeah, very good question. So let me go to stay at this slide and actually talk about that question as well that you asked. These are the extra credits, and the reason why I put this extra credit is I think going back to the first question that somebody asked in the room was, how do you stand out? Now, when I'm seeing resumes, and I usually get, I was part of the university recruiting team for a long time for Microsoft, which means that we get thousands of resumes, and we were the first folks who were screening after the ATS and everything goes through. The things that really spoke to me and many others are the things that how you actually stand out in the resume. A lot of folks have done very standard projects like everybody has done. And when you see enough resumes, you know what projects I'm talking about. Those are very standard projects where you take a data set and analyze and build some graphs and that's it. Now, the examples that I gave you, which are really coming from your own interest, they would be the ones that are really unique because nobody else has done the same project in the same way that you have done. One thing that's really, really important. Again, you would think that on the other side, folks won't know, but that's not the case. When you are a hiring manager, you've been hiring, and I've been doing that for a long time as a data engineering, and then for data scientists, I've seen the same project, let's say, repeated multiple times, but then the folks who have really done, there was this one person, I still remember the resume, they had done some prediction about these poker games, and that project stood out to me. And I actually, when did the first interview with them, I poked them on that project and then found out that they had played poker for a long time, and that's how they ended up doing that project. And those are the ones that really stand out to you because they come from a background, they come from, and the way it was explained, it was very much clear what they tried to do, what their objective was, and why they were doing it. So why is very important. Now, there are other ways that you can stand out as well. So you don't have to always do projects is definitely a great way to add that. And you should be having multiple projects in your career to showcase those. But then folks who've done open source contributions. So let's say you're really good in Python and you really want to contribute, you can directly go and contribute to any Python-based project. Now, as a hiring manager, when I'm looking at somebody who can build these models at scale, and I'm looking for a very strong Python developer who can do that, or a person who can do that, I know that you've done this in the open source. So again, that will stand out to me as compared to somebody who has used Python on the other side. When you've contributed directly to an open source repository, that's a great way of showing that. There are many other things you can do. Of course, certifications, hackathon projects are really, really great. Folks actually compete with those ideas and all of that. Part of being communities like this, and those are all extra things that you can add. Now, your question, going back to one part of your question that I also want to address is that when you look at those roles, most of those things are common, right? So the bare minimum is you need to have some kind of core understanding of how these systems work, which is you need Python, you need SQL, and you need some kind of visualization, right? Those are the three basic ones that regardless of any one of those roles, you can be decently successful in those roles. The current market and the way it is right now, the competition is really, really high. So all of these things that are on this slide and I've shared with you previously as well will make you stand out. Thinking about those projects, participating in hackathons. I know right now a lot of folks are doing OpenAI hackathons, whatnot. There is a lot that can be done in that space that we have not, generative AI and whatnot. There's a lot to be done in that space. So that could be an edge for all of you today who are graduating soon, which is not there for anybody else because it's fairly new and it's like fair game for anyone to try out these APIs and build something really interesting and exciting. I'll give you one more example before I go towards the end of the session. I was in one of these hackathons as a judge. And there was this person who presented a project to me, which was about the content that kids see on the internet. And they had built an ML model, very simple ML model that can be installed as an extension to Chrome, and that will filter that content for you. And that to me, I have been searching for that for a long time as a parent, and I couldn't find that. And right now, the only content moderation we have is through Apple and a few other kind of device level, but not really at the content level. And that idea, so many months after that, it still resonated with me. And I followed up with that person afterwards saying that, please connect with me wherever you're looking for a role or anything like that. So those are things that stand out to you. Those are the projects that, and this, I'm just giving my examples, but there are many things you never know what will resonate with who in that sense. So whatever speaks the most for you, build a plan for yourself, have an action plan for the next 3 months, 6 months, types of projects you want to do, types of competitions you want to go to, any open source things like that, and add that to your GitHub. Make sure you keep adding that to your GitHub. I take intentional action to every GitHub, every resume that I see. I go to their GitHub and find more about their GitHub, what they have done on there, and if they have written good documentation. Those are additional plus points, because nobody thinks about those things. They're like, okay, what I've projected in my resume is enough, right? But if you have good documentation, that gives me extra points about you, that not only you can write good code, you can write good documentation also. So I'm just sharing being an all-rounder, what that means and how you can really stand out, which a lot of folks would bypass when they do that.
Yeah, I have a follow-up that like what if like you have to have a position like even at your company, like if you have like thousands of applicants applying, so do you seriously go to every person's resumes and check their GitHub? Okay, so this guy did this, let me check like they stands out, like because there are not many applicants that have applied for the same position. Or is there a filter like, okay, so I'm going to do only for the top 100, top 200, rest they will just weed it out because they got too late, like.
Yeah, so that's a very good question, and that's exactly how these large corporations or like large set of resumes work. So usually there's the first level, which is the ATS or some which has already rejected a bunch of applications to even end up being to hiring managers, right? So let's say 1,000 people apply. I'm just taking a random number. Let's say 1,000 people apply for one role. 400, 500 of those would be rejected by ATS just because the resume won't have the right words or matching to that or that level. Then the recruiters actually come in and they do some initial screens for us as well. So they basically go through certain more algorithms or manual work of that. And then referrals usually are shown in the top as well. So now there is a small bunch. So maybe I would say 50 to 100, sometime 150 per role. And that number can change for the role as well. And that number can change when the day the role goes out after like the first week and then later in the week as well. That is the number that gets to hiring managers, and hiring managers, depending on how they want to manage. When I'm hiring for a particular role in my team, for example, that's my full-time job during that time, because that's the most important thing I have to do to find the right person for my team. So I actually would spend that time. I would set aside 20 minutes every few hours in that day to go through those resumes and go through and put some folks on the top that I really want to do the first screen on, where I want to spend 1 hour to really screen them. So that's really how the process works in these large corporations. In some companies, recruiters do this first screen for us. Some companies, hiring managers do that. And you need to know the difference, what companies do what one versus the other. But that's really is the current process. So if your resume is not aligned, you will get rejected right away. If your resume goes through the first level, then referral are really bit high. And then there's the next level of screening where the hiring managers want to spend that 1 hour with those 10, 15 people that really stand out for that role, that really are the right fit. Because you don't have that much time, right? You really need to close that position as well.
I guess I have a follow-up question from that.
Yeah.
So if you've made some of your Git repositories public, but they were sort of just, an hour or two of work and not really a serious endeavor, should you remove those from your Git so that that doesn't accidentally represent you in your professional brand?
Yeah, so definitely you can basically make them private or make them less visible in the top 2, 3 ones that show up. Again, nobody would have time to go through every repository. The ones that show up on the top, or the ones that really highlighted, or they have either from a project, if there is a resume section in projects, you have linked it back. Those are the ones folks will go to. I don't think when I said into GitHub, it would not mean that everybody will go through everything in your GitHub. But if let's say the first 5 in your GitHub are all the ones that you were half done or not well done, there's a high chance somebody spending 1 minute, 2 minutes on your resume on your resume has already moved on. So again, making sure you have a very solid first impression, making sure your GitHub or whatever links are your resume take people to the high level content. And then LinkedIn, as I said, like is a great resource. A lot of people will do your research on LinkedIn. They will search on LinkedIn your name and see what shows up. That's another way. Again, somebody would do that. Not everybody would spend time on it. Make sure you are aligned and you want the right professional brand to show up in these places.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I have a follow-up question.
Sure.
So regarding LinkedIn, so when you go through LinkedIn, right, do you see, do you want people to have some posts regarding to that, regarding that domain? Like if I'm going for machine learning, so do you check if a person is posting the content related to machine learning and you prefer those people? Is it, or it's another way around? Something.
Yeah, I don't think as a hiring manager, you would go to LinkedIn to find out, okay, if this is really relative and they've posted about it. But if, let's say, I was referring you for a particular role, the way I would know about that is, let's say, through your LinkedIn connection with me and see what is your interest or my interest and what's common. So I would kind of differentiate between the two. Regardless of any one of that, having a solid LinkedIn profile or having something in the area of interest that you have will take you a long way of your next role or maybe the next plus role. All my roles, all my switches of my job were done through LinkedIn connections, through folks who reached out to me on LinkedIn or through email after seeing something on LinkedIn, or a common network person, not always on LinkedIn, for example. So somebody worked with me and they were like, okay, this is something, she's really great and you should go talk to her. So I'm sharing this one example. This is in the slides. This is like the ideal situation. You don't have to be there tomorrow, but this is a LinkedIn profile that jumps out for this person who talks about what they're really good at, which is the author and a writer. And these are all the top 10, 11 things that they have done in their LinkedIn profile to really stand out to anyone who's searching for the next author or a writer or somebody who's a speaker in that area. Right. So again, I will share all of these the slides with you afterwards to see. I would say a resume is very particular to a particular job that you're applying to. So, right, always know the difference between resume and LinkedIn. LinkedIn is your 360-degree view of you, who you are, what's your professional brand, and what are all the areas that matter to you. For example, if you go on my LinkedIn today, you'll find a lot of my diversity inclusion work. You will find a lot of my professional work, speaking work, other things, all of the things that are important to me from how I want folks to perceive me or how I want my professional brand to be.
Yeah, thank you so much.
No worries. So I will just wrap up here with the resources and summary, and there were like 1 or 2 slides that I jumped over, but this was one that I wanted to show at the end, which is you will have a plan and then life would have a plan around it, right? And that's the reality. We all have to realize that, and the sooner you realize that, the sooner you be at peace with it. Current IT world and all of that is also a bit scary in that sense, because layoffs, all of that are very much happening these days. So you should have a plan B in that sense and think about these things, and they all are very real. So just wanted to leave with that. And then this were a couple of resources slides for all of you. Again, I will share all of these, the deck with all of you. I do also have this another tiny URL link that you can find more details of as a student, what you should do on your LinkedIn. There's like step-by-step things, what types of things you should add in your, and then again, this is my link to connect with me afterwards. Again, thank you so much for being here for the last hour and 6 minutes, and happy to connect with anyone who wants to talk to me afterwards. I will leave you with this slide, and have a good rest of your day.
All right. Was there any other questions before we sign off? Just want to thank you so much again for coming, and we very much enjoyed your presentation and look forward to staying in touch with you.
Thank you. Thank you for organizing, and thank you for inviting me. Have a good rest of your day. Feel free to connect afterwards. I'll be happy to take any questions and answer you afterwards as well.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.